Hello friends, today I'm going to talk about Apache Atlas Metadata Server, overall architecture, the ecosystem of Apache Atlas, the V2 REST interface, and how you can create different things in the server using that interface. And during the end of the video, I'll be talking about the Atlas UI interface that is provided by Atlas itself. So the question of $1,000,000, what metadata is? Metadata is data that provides information about other data. And why do we need information about other data and what does that mean? So as we know, for bigger enterprises and for a lot of complicated things, the data is actually produced from different sources and that data is acted upon by different processes. So these sources may have different data types. These processes might be transforming data from time to time. So we need to track where the data was produced, how it was transformed, so that later we can do any analytics or any kind of stuff on that. So that's why we need data about data. A simple analogy to this is, for example, comments in the code. I assume that most of us are from programming background. So we all comment the code so that after some time when we revisit the code, we can understand the code quickly. Similarly, we need metadata so that when we have to revisit the data source again, we can visit it and use it properly. Now let us take more relevant example. So as we know, in this world of globalization, we have bigger supply chains, we have bigger warehouse companies where data is getting produced in different parts of the world and is flowing through different servers. Different things are acting upon them, and then the data analyst in the end are trying to find what are the problems in the company. So because we know there are different kinds of producers and consumers where bills are coming from one company in one format and going to, they're doing some processes, then some reports are getting generated. So all this entire complicated process has to be logged. We have to have information that when that data was produced, from where it was produced, so that when we are debugging the flow of the company or issues in the problems in the company flows to maximize the profit, we could reverse go to the place and reproduce things and find out the direct faults. So that's why maintaining data about the data becomes important for any enterprise, so that later it can make sense of whatever it's stored, and if something was modified, then exactly what was modified. So in the world of big data, Apache Atlas is kind of a solution, and it is part of the big Apache initiative regarding big data. So all the tool set that is provided open source under Apache. Atlas is the one which is responsible for maintaining all this, and it provides a server which can actually log the entire data set. And now let's discuss what are the advantages that Atlas basically provides. So it provides us capability for classification of the data, information about the lineage of the data, the different ways in which we can search and discover the data, and it also helps in implementing secure infrastructure or security policies on the top of this, so that we can control who can see the data, who cannot see the data. Now coming to these things like what is classification. So we know that in an enterprise or organizations, different kind of data will be produced, and we need to we might like to mark that data, that what kind of a data it is. For example, there is a section in an enterprise which might be storing information about the employees, their social security numbers, or some other details about the employees' personal information, and we might like to tag that data, so that we can enforce that who can see the data, who cannot see the data, and all the what kind of data is present in this. So these kind of activities, they come under classifying the data, that what kind of a data it is. And lineage is kind of helping us find out how the data is moving over the flow, an entire data flow, that from where the data was produced, then who was acting on it, then what was the output data, then who was further uh, acting on that output data, because that's how a typical organization work. Because in one warehouse the data is produced, then it moves, goods are produced, then it moves to a different warehouse, then some people do some processing on those goods, then it moves to a third place. So actually this is a chain and constantly evolving. So these kind of things of data can be tracked using lineage. Search and discovery, and as we know, the data keeps on increasing, so all the metadata related to the data will also keep on increasing. So you will need to find out things quickly in this entire system. So that this is where it helps, like you want to search a certain kind of a data and want to know where this data was getting produced, where it is getting consumed. So all these things are pre-built into Atlas, and we don't have to do much for that if we design the system properly. So now let us discuss about the architecture of Atlas, a little bit about it, and overall where it fits in the big data systems entire system, and what are the components of it, and how different components of the overall big data ecosystem interact with it to give us the results. So here at the top left you can actually see the data sources here. So these are actually the places where from where the data can be stored, and we can from where we find out that the data was stored, created or modified, or different things were happened. So all these things like Hive uh, and Storm and HBase, so they are basically different form for storing big data. In some are databases, some are things. So all these things actually produce Kafka events. These Kafka events are actually received by Atlas, and with the help of that, Atlas can actually modify the state of the data, because it will know that the data was modified, as all the modification is actually done basically on Hive and all. So if you see, these are the places where the data actually resides, and once the data is modified or anything acts on that data, the information is then sent to Kafka messaging system. So it's a messaging system in the big data ecosystem. So once the message is sent into Kafka, it is received by Atlas, and then because Atlas knows now a certain kind of data was modified, it can have the entry of the modification in the metadata server itself. So if we see, there are two ways of acting with the Atlas. So here we can see the two ways are for integrating things with Atlas are, one is Kafka messaging that I have already told you, and the other is the REST API. So we are going to talk about REST API version 2, and that it is relatively recent, and I found out that most of the documentation that exists about Apache Atlas REST APIs is for version 1. So we'll be talking about version 2 in this video. But this is the interface from where various applications, non-metadata sources, can actually interact with Atlas to find the details about the data so that they can act. For example, if you see things like Ranger, so Ranger can actually read the metadata and enforce the security policies on the top of it for the security purpose, as we discussed in the features provided by Atlas. From the architecture of Atlas itself, so Atlas itself has a Juno graph, which is a graph based database, and which can help scalably store big graphs onto itself, and then this entire graph is actually stored in HBase, which is a database in itself. I won't say database, but a storage mechanism, if you say so. And the other component of this is Solr. So this is a search engine, I would say, for text-based search. So as you are producing this huge amount of data, so you will need to query the data. When we read about the features provided by Atlas, we saw searching and discovery was an important part of Atlas. So this searching and discovery actually happens through Solr. So that is how, because it indexes all the things that are coming into it, and then later it helps us search all that. And the default Atlas interface actually provides us all these features, and they are integrated into the system using Solr. So now let's discuss the APIs. So now let's come to the core topic, the Atlas REST APIs. So here you can see the page, and it contains different categories of APIs that are provided by Atlas. I have simply copied it from the default Atlas page, and you can see the link from where it is taken. The only thing that I would like to emphasize here are the categories. So if you see the category with different categories of APIs that are provided by Atlas are like discovery based. So what does this discovery based means? It actually helps you find different kind of things, different kind of information in the that is stored in the metadata. What means if you want to let's take example, if you want to find a certain data of a certain type, or like what are the different sources on which a certain process is acting on. So it basically helps you discover different things that are stored in the server. So for entity, this entity interface actually helps you create entities and modify different. So it provides various ways in which you can create, update, delete entries. You can inquire about them. So this is all that part of it. Glossary is one more part of it, which like how you categorize the data, what are the different items associated with it, what are the business meanings associated with it. So all these things, if you want to inquire that part of data, you can use this lineage as I discovered earlier. So you can see the how actually the data is getting modified. It will you can get the entire path of how things are flowing. So because different form of data can have relationship among each other, so we have a set of APIs which help discover those relationships between data. And this other category of REST APIs are test based APIs. So they actually type based APIs, and these APIs actually help you create different types for which you later end up creating different entities on the top of it. So if you see, so these are the basic broader categories that are actually supported by Apache Atlas version 2 for creating different things. So now, because it's a basic introductory video, so after this I would like to share with you how we can create different entities, and how we can use these APIs to create entity types, entities, different processes, what are the but before going to that, I would prefer talking about the types supported by Atlas. So now coming to the types, uh, uh, like any other programming language or any other software system, uh, Atlas supports type. And one of the assumption, like any other programming language, is that you will have only one thing of a certain type. So it has a unique identifier called name, and it should always have a unique value so that it knows that there will be only one entity of this type. It supports all the primitive data types like boolean, short, int, long, everything. It supports enum, and it support composite entries like equivalent of classes like entities and classifications and structures and all. We can also have arrays and maps. To take an example of this, we can see on the right hand side here we see an entity name hive table, and it has attributes name which is of type string, and it has attribute called db which is of type hive db, which simply means that input to this attribute will be a hive database. And here you can see how that we support array. So this partition key is actually an array of type hive table. Like any other software system, it provides us predefined types like referenceable, asset, infrastructure, dataset, process. So it's like similarly like in any of the programming language, we have a basic set of libraries which you can use to create certain things. So we already have some composite types here. For example, if you have a composite type process, you will have attributes called input and output already attached to it, so that because you know it is a process, so it will take some input and will have some output. So to show the lineage, you can initialize the input attribute to the input of the process, and you can initialize the output to the output of the process. So data set because we know all these things like any table or database table or any data that we store, it will have a certain schema or associated with it. So all the things that are basic things that are needed for defining a schema are already there in the data set. So all these things are pre-provided in Atlas, and we can build on the top of that. And if you I know most of you are interested in this, that's why you're watching the video, but if you're interested, so to work on it, you will need Apache Atlas. You can download it from the website, the version 2 of it. And for complete testing, you will need curl. So if you are on Linux, you will have curl, but otherwise you might need Cygwin and all, or in other case you might also install some browser extension so that you can simulate the REST APIs using curl for testing Apache Atlas. Coming to the important part of the demo, so here I'll start important things like how we can create an entity and how we can create objects of that type, and all those things will be covered in this video after this. So let's start with the official documentation. So if you see this REST request v2/type/via-def, type def is actually the API which is responsible for creating a certain type. So you have to send a post request to this, and media type has to be application/JSON, and it will return you the result if the type is actually created. You can express means you can expect a code of 200 or 400, so 200 if it is successful. Now if you want to see exactly how you define a type, so on the right you can see I have actually created a dummy type. So you start with this tag called entity def in the JSON file. So this all is JSON, just for clarification. So this entity type entity def actually helps the REST request to identify that this is something for creating a entity definition or a type, and the name of that type is T1. You can have different attributes like what is the detail about this type and all the things, and this entity of type T2 or T1 will have a name and the attribute called name, and the type of that attribute will be string, as you can see here. So what is the type of it? You can provide other things like whether it is unique, it is indexable, so you can provide all the other kind of information. So if you see till now, you have to create a JSON file where you declare the information about the entity. So it's like creating the class that is there in the header files for that, and once you have done that, then you will go for creating object or initializing it, if I give the exact analogy. Now you see here at the top I have created two entity types, T1 and T2. Both of them have a name attribute, and it is of type string, and here after that you will see the curl request that is there for creating those entity types. So simply we are saying that we have to send a post request into the server where content type is application/JSON, and accepted type is also application/JSON, and user is admin in my case. Then you give the URL as we discussed earlier. If you see, this is the server name, the port name, and then atlas/v2/types/via-def, and in the end -d @ So this is the way you can send a file as an input to any curl command. So what I have done here, you can see this is t1.type, some part of it is truncated, it is actually t1.type.json. So this entire part of it I have actually stored in a JSON file. This is actually whole stored in a JSON file. Similarly, you can have a JSON file for this. We can also store both of them in the same file as separated, but just for the clarification's sake, I have made two different files, and then once you give this command, these two types are actually created into the meta system. So once you have created these two types, you would like T1 and T2, you would like to create objects of these two types. So now for creating the object of these two types, I created one more JSON file where if you see the format of this file for creating data, you initially tell that you are interested in creating an entity whose type name is t1 and which has attributes name and what is the value of that attribute. So you can call it the server or the device, whatever it is, name, whatever it represents in that case. Similarly, on the other side, I created, and I'm trying to create an object of type t2 whose name is t2 entity name, just for the demo sake. And the other thing, attribute project, how it comes, from where it has come, I'll cover that in subsequent lectures. So it is an example of a relationship, and how we can create it, we have to again give a JSON request for this. And here you can see the URL is different. So now instead of sending the data to uh, the type defs, I am sending the data to entity, because now we are not creating a definition of entity, we are trying to create an object of the definition that we have already created. And one thing that we have to keep in mind is, because we have created different JSON files for both the def types, we have to issue two commands for creating the types, and then two commands for creating the data. For example, in this example, I have only created an object of type t1, if you say this one, but we have to create object of type this also, so we have to save this in a different file. We can club it together, but for just for clarity, and then give a JSON curl command with this one also, so that the entity of type t2 is also created. Now coming to relationships, as all of us who are experienced in system design, we know that relationships are any important part of a system design. So, and if you want to know how two entities or two classes are connected, we have to specify, we know that there is a relation. So there are different methods that different platforms provide for this. So here you can see that this is how we can define a relationship type. First of all, if you see, we are mentioning here that this is a relationship type, what is the name of it, and you can provide different things around it. So each relation should have two ends, if you can say, because it's a two-ended relation. So what is the definition for one part of it, and what is the definition for other part of it? So here we are saying that one of end of it is called t1, and other end of it is called is of type t. I would say one end of it is connected to object of type t1, and it will have an attribute called source, and other of type t2, and it will be called destination. So what it will actually do is, it will add these two attributes in the entities itself. So it's like a equivalent of that, where, so now suddenly, because our previous entity type t1 was only having one attribute about dot name, so now you can assume that it will now start having two attributes, one is name and other is source. And similarly that will happen with t2, and it will start getting another thing, that's destination, and that you could easily see in the previous example where I showed how we could get an extra attribute into the system, like the project. So now coming to another critical part of this entire atlas, because we know processes are important part of any data flow, and so this entity is supposed to represent the process. So now, for example, we know that there is some data generated by some data source, and we execute a database query on the top of it. So we would like to define a type for that query. For example, here I have created a type called database query, and here you can see another interesting thing, that I have derived it from type super type process. So that will give me the advantage that it will actually introduce two new attributes into the system, simply like inheritance. So this also supports inheritance, and true attributes like name, input and output will be inserted into the object of this entity itself, so that you can say that this is a process, and what is the input to this process, and what is the output to this process. So generally this will be a equivalent of things in your system, like if there was a database query that is running on it, or there is a script, or there is some process that acts on, like computation of tax or something, if it happens. So this can represent the equivalent of that on data. Another important problem that comes when for the starters comes when we have to when we are working on creating entities in metadata is, if there is an object of a certain type, how will you give it as an input to the parameter in the JSON? So the way one of the ways we can do it in Atlas is this one, where for example this people was taking an input of type person, and so now to give that input in the JSON file, what we did was we actually created, you can think of it like a kind of dictionary, where we gave the GUI ID of the person it is associated with, and we mentioned the type of the GUI ID. So that's how we can do that. So if this attribute people was of type person, it's difficult to write with the pen, so for with the mouse. So what we did was we took the GUI ID, the unique ID that was created in Atlas for that instance of the person, we put the value of that, and we mentioned that it was of type person. So we close it into a dictionary form, and that's how we can specify this as an object. So if it is an array, so you have to like create it as an array of these dictionaries. So this will actually kind of become like this, and all the entities will then be separated with a dictionary. So this is how you can specify as an array of objects as an input in your JSON file that is to be shipped for creating that particular entity. Now coming to the other part of it, that is the GUI interface. So the interface that you see right in front of you on the screen is the typical Atlas GUI interface. So there are other interfaces also that you might see in other videos regarding Atlas, but they are there because their Atlas is actually part of a bigger system, so that GUI doesn't look similar to this. So actually that confused me also when I was initially studying it, that how are there two interfaces. But this is the actual interface of the Atlas server. So if you create a an instance of Atlas server after making a build for this Atlas, so this is what the UI will look like. The first password will be admin, and that you can use to log in. So there are other things. There is a section in the startup that's called quick start. If you run it, that section will actually create all the basic types into the system for you to explore different things. So here at the top, if you see these things, so this is basically where you can search anything. The Solar component of it will come into picture, and other you can search by type, search by all the different things that you wanted in this here, and the results will be shown. You can even create entities from the GUI, and we can restrict this going forward. So this the result that you are seeing on the screen, this is actually from the data that was created by quick start. So it gives a predefined data. If you see here, we can see all the things that are of type table. So the quick search and discovery of data. So you can see these are the tables that are there in the system. So what are their different classification associated with it. So you can see some of the description. So that's where all these things come handy for data exploration and data analytics. You can quickly find all these kind of stuff. Now going forward, you see here you can see the relationship. So the relationship entity that was defining. So here we can see that this table is actually having attribute which is connected to view, it has connected to columns, it is connected to the database. And going forward, we can also see the lineage. So here we can see this log fact daily data was actually acted upon by load logs monthly to produce log facts XYZ. So here we are seeing how the daily facts are getting transformed by a process called load logs monthly into some facts which can later be used by the analytics for or which are part of a certain dashboard or something. So we are actually seeing how the data is getting transformed. So if this chain starts becoming bigger, so you in the flow you can actually see this chain going more and more bigger in the visualization also. So this complete flow based visualization is relatively good, and understandable. So for this example it might look small, but in actual when this supply chain, or sorry, data flow will become bigger, you can understand it in a more better way from this visualization. So that actually that really helps as you take things forward. So this is under the lineage tab. So the previous one was under the relationship tab. So similarly you have independent tabs for them like classification, atlas, anything. So that's all I had, and please let me know if you have any feedbacks or questions in the comments. This was my first try for recording a video. Might be there were some issues, and I would like to improve on them as we go forward. Thank you.